Kat, I am so happy that you are joining me here this morning to have this really great, juicy discussion that we've been kind of digging into over the last month. And we're finally here doing it. So I want to welcome you to the show.
Yes, thanks, Karen. And I'm another Karen, but today I'm going by Kat. It's my nickname. So if you see two Karens on the screen, that's
yeah. So I'll be referring to you as Kat.
Yes.
And from here on out, so that everyone can distinguish who's who and what we're talking about. So I invited you to come on the show to really have this conversation about the spiritual journey and spiritual connection, because you've had an extraordinary journey of your own, and we connected, oh my gosh, has it only been a month? Maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. And we connected over soul contracts because we both...
Yeah, synchronistically.
Yes, synchronistically, we both connected because we're both soul contract readers. And in that whole conversation, we just went to a whole other place, which is so wonderfully happens a lot of the time. So here you are. I would like you to share with us, what can you tell us about your life, your spiritual journey? What brought you to this place where you are right now?
How much time we have? No, I'm just kidding. First of all, I want to say thank you, Karen. I feel so honored to be on your show. I've listened to several of your interviews, and you are a wonderful, calm, radiant interviewer. So
well,
I don't ruin your record. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, those are very kind words. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just glad that you're here.
My journey, look, while my journey is different from other people's journey, it isn't unique. I've heard the time on this planet, we have so many people popping. And what I mean by popping is getting, waking up, going into the spiritual, metaphysical realm. And so many people's journeys are similar to mine. And their spiritual journey started in childhood, just like mine did. It's like we kind of came in semi-awake. And so in childhood, it's as if I was born longing to go home. And that's all I've ever known as a child. I kept saying to myself, I want to go home. I want to go home. And I had this deep sadness and that longing to be reunited with God, even though I had no orientation in any religion or any knowledge of God. So it was that deep longing, and I'd always stare at the stars and talk to the trees. I was very much a loner and very unhappy here. I didn't understand this place. So it kind of catapulted me into a deep depression at a very young age. It's that deep, that deep inner longing to go home. And you don't understand that as a child, but at the age of 12, I attempted suicide. And what I know now about that deep inner longing, and I'm saying this for your viewers or listeners out there, is that because of the energies that are coming into this planet right now, the last couple of years, so many people are feeling that deep longing, that sadness, and they don't know what it is. The ego will kind of take control of that and say, oh, it's time to commit suicide or do something drastic. But here's what that longing is. It's really your soul kind of knocking at you saying, no, it's time for your spiritual awakening. So that is my PSA, public service announcement, for anyone who's feeling that kind of sadness and longing and they don't know where it's coming from. It's time to dig deeper. Don't check out, check in.
Yeah, I think that is an excellent PSA, because we've seen, in the news over the last year with prominent people just checking out,
Yes.
and people look at their lives and say, well, what could have actually been wrong, right? Yeah. So then this now goes to ask the question, what does being awake really mean? What does having your spirit awake really mean? And what does that feel like?
Well, so we all know that phrase, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, right? Well, we know it, but we don't really, first of all, we don't live it, and we don't really know what that's saying. So as a spiritual being, you came down here to pretend to be human. but we keep acting like we're human, and we're not. And this human form comes with physical body and a personal mind, and that personal mind creates this ego. We all know what ego is. And this ego creates a very skewed, false reality of life, right? And so this human form, its energy is a thinking energy. It's a thinking consciousness. That's not spirit. Your spiritual self, the energy of the universe, is feeling consciousness. So you have essentially two yous inside of you. But when spirit descended or created this form, it became so enmeshed into the ego mind that it thinks it's the mind. So what a spiritual awakening is, it has nothing to do with the mind and the ego and the personality waking up. It has everything to do with your feeling body, your consciousness waking up inside of you. So that's who needs to wake up. Should I stop there? Or keep?
No, I think this is good. Yes, it does make sense. So it's the spirit inside wanting to wake up, and how will people know that they're in, that's what they're feeling? What are the signs that their spirit is trying to wake up?
Well, it is external signs would be your life kind of gets really messy. Well, first of all, you may have an inclination to investigate alternative healings. You're starting to do yoga. You're kind of investigating things. Your mind somehow has been opened up, and you're starting to investigate. But then your life will go really bad. So, relationships ends, you get fired, chronic illnesses. Those are signs that something is trying to wake you up, to look beyond your current structure of reality. The soul symptoms, I suppose, are that deep longing inside of you. It's depression. Some of the signs now, people cry and they don't know why. It's that longing to go home, because home is our spiritual self, but the ego mind has hijacked us, Yeah.
So home is really where we're whole and in alignment, because yes, the truth is that we are a part of divine essence. We are a part of God, and the separation was created when we come into human form. So this wanting to reunite can establish, as you said, or present in many different ways. Yeah. And being alert and aware to what those might mean. Because when we have dis-ease, it's a sign that we're not in alignment. Correct. And in order to make the spiritual connection, and I'm going to have you talk about your perspective on that. My perspective on it is, when we get into alignment mentally and physically, we open the door for a spiritual alignment to occur. But when we're sort of out of sync mentally, out of sync physically, mentally with the ego construct, physically with poor self-care and denigration of the body, it's very difficult. It's not that spirit can't come in, but when those things are not in alignment, it's very difficult to be able to feel the fullness and the power of your spiritual nature.
Right. Well, let me just say one thing. You know, it's you're using terms like to have the soul come in or we're separate. We're not. Your spirit is already inside of you and you can feel it every time you breathe, right? So it's not that we are separate from spirit. Well, I don't want people to think that, oh,
No.
I'm not connected. You know what I'm saying?
No, we feel separated when we come in. There's this separation, this false separation that's created when we come in human form.
Because we have elevated thinking above feeling. So whenever we're thinking, we're not in alignment with our soul. We should be. The universe is a feeling consciousness. So the moment we get into our bellies and breathe, and we start feeling how our body feels, now we're in alignment with our spiritual self. But we spend all of our time up here in our head. And I know I'm probably going off on a tangent here, but
no, not at all. This is very important.
This is how we get to a spiritual awakening. Like, you can remember this. You have to know who is here to wake up. It is not the mind, and it's not the personality, nor is it the body, because you are not any of those things, okay? So you can take all the classes you want and do everything, and feed the mind. And it's very important to have a very healthy and open mind for this journey, but it's not necessary. The necessary part is you got to start breathing and get into your feeling body. That's what awakens the soul. And I think I heard you brilliantly say one time that the breath is CPR for the soul. It is the only way you can resurrect yourself and awaken. It is your body that needs awakening. Not really your body, but the spirit. Your soul essence is residing in your nervous system.
Yeah, and it's awakening that, and we can use the breath to kind of jumpstart, because the spirit has been suppressed. As you said, we've elevated thinking over feeling.
Yes.
And so everything is think. And so the feeling part, we feel it, but usually what we're feeling is not anything good.
Yeah,
right?
We're feeling illness.
Exactly. And that's the spirit saying something's wrong.
Yes.
You know, because our physical bodies really are reflections of what's happening inside emotionally in the feeling body. And when we understand that energy and emotions are energy, and that's part of why they're so important, we have to use them. And I think a lot of people think, and I've had people say this to me, that in order to be on the spiritual journey or to transcend, that we're supposed to be emotionless, you know, and that we're not supposed to have emotions. And I don't subscribe to that. I believe that we need to use our emotions to constructively direct us to where we need to be paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Our emotions, we can distinguish between emotions and feelings, right? Our emotions, most of the emotions that people are feeling right now are like anger, all that sort of stuff. Those are ego constructed emotions. Okay, so those, in one respect, that person is correct, that while we don't want to reject them and resist them, we don't want to cling to them.
Yeah.
So what we want to, I guess, cling to is our feelings, and our feelings come through our senses.
Yeah.
So there's a small distinction, but let me say this. You don't, there are many systems out there, and even all these tools out there to help, you know, you got to figure out all your programs and work on your shadows and all that sort of stuff. That stuff is great. It keeps the mind busy, but you can have a spiritual awakening and be a total mess.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not a requirement that the personality be developed and be, I mean, it's easier. And this is what happened to me about I don't know how many years ago now.
Well, Kat, real quick, I just want to say, because I want to hear this, but for anyone who's just joining and listening in, this is the Awaken and Rise experience, and my special guest today is Kat Benson, and we are talking about spiritual awakening, making the spiritual connection, and why that is so important. So, Kat, you were just about to share some more of your journey, and you shared a little bit about what happened to you in childhood and this longing to go home, and then as you got older.
Oh, well, okay. We're going back there.
Oh, well, no, wherever you want to go, wherever you want to take it.
It's really good, actually. Yeah, so, what I was at 17, 18 in the late 70s or early, whatever, long time ago. Doesn't it feel like so long ago?
I was right there with you.
I know you were. It's just so funny. Time is fast. Anyway, I was going to past life regressions, going to channelers, and, I did every self-help development system out there, transcendental meditation, and then, went into the corporate big, I was handling all the, corporate. Whew, boy, that's a soul killer. Just kidding.
And a lot of people are there. So that's why this is so important. Yeah.
And if you have any inkling of this spiritual inclination or awakening, and you're in the corporate field and you try to be the idealist and you want to do things the right way, the moral way, forget about it.
I know. Can I just say that happened to me? That was my experience, my first big corporate experience. I was like the weird girl who was like, we can't do that. That's not the right, and like literally, and this was in the 90s where it was like eat or be eaten, so I completely get it.
Yeah. I have gray hair now, but I used to be almost a flaming strawberry redhead, right? And they used to call me Shirley MacLaine or the woo woo girl. And even I worked for oil and gas companies, and I even taught a class on law of attraction like 6 years before The Secret came out. So they really thought I was kooky, but the owner of the company showed up. I mean, I think back and I go, you were one courageous kooky girl. Teaching law of attraction to these oil and gas people. It was funny.
That's great.
Yeah. So around 2007, I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening while I was driving on the highway. At the time, I didn't know what was going on, but I had just reignited my meditation practice, and Kundalini awakened. And I will tell you, if you've had any kind of, you think you've had a Kundalini awakening, be prepared, because sometimes your life will go really wrong. That's when all my illnesses kicked in. My heart got broken and I shut down my heart, and I was just, and then I got fired. But in retrospect, you go, oh my gosh, that was Kundalini awakening. And Kundalini comes in and she wants you. She pulls you in and into a little cocoon and provides you somehow. It provided a life for the last, 7 to 10 years. I've done nothing but I've been sort of like a little monk here, isolated, researching, meditating, longing, reading, all of it. And it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me, the best and the worst, And
I think that's an important thing to bring up, is when it feels like everything's going left, to, be able to take a different look at it. If we look at it through the programmed eyes of society, then we're judging it, and something's wrong here. And I did something wrong. There must be something wrong with me, or someone's doing something to me, or whatever. And, if you just stop and take a look around, it doesn't make sense how people's lives go. You see all kinds of people experiencing things you wouldn't expect them to experience, good things happening to bad people, bad things happening to good people, or whatever you want to consider good if you're using this judgment. And this whole concept of fairness in life, you know, that I can like check all my boxes and I can buy my way in and it's all going to be good and I can buy my happiness by doing X, Y, and Z. And, you know, when things go wrong and start going left, I always say that's an invitation for us to lean in and pay attention and start asking what's going on, because there is always a bigger purpose and a bigger meaning behind what's happening. We can choose to look at it through the very narrow lens of society and our programming and call it a wrap and say, you know, pronounce it dead and all kinds of bad things, right? Or we can look at it and say, what is this opening up for me? What is this leading me to? Because that is the universe nudging you in a different direction. And I'm sure at the time, Kat, it felt horrible. But in retrospect, you understand that this is probably the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah, I will say you know, it wasn't the first time I'd been fired nor dumped.
So welcome to the human club.
Yeah. But I tell you, you know, because I had been working with, you know, law of attraction, all the previous times that everything went into the wind, and the ego can take control of these metaphysical principles and want to use it for its own gain. So all previously, my ego went into strategy mode. I'm going to manifest a new job. I'm going to, Well, that's all the mind trying to control. This last time, it actually was an answer from my soul. And I was so exhausted and hating life, and I knew that I didn't want, I wanted to be on a soul searching, I wanted to be in a cave somewhere. That was what I really wanted. And I just let go using law of attraction, and I just said, I just asked for help. And I said, please make it happen. This is what I want, but you have to take care of it. And life provides it. And I remember, you know, I was fired and I was just driving around. And for the first time, I heard this voice from the outside of me. And it said, because I didn't know, now what do? I don't have a job. Do I go back to school? And I needed some help financially. And the voice said, you have to ask again. I mean, it gave me chills. I've never heard a voice from outside of myself. That was the first time. And I had a friend in town, and my earth angel, and I just came home and I said, I need help. Can you help me? I'd like to go to school. And he goes, sure.
There you go.
I'll take care of you.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think there were a couple things in there, this idea of asking. And, you know, you said, you know, you stopped using law of attraction. You were just asking for what you wanted. And, you know, to anyone that's listening or watching, you know, everyone's journey is different. Yeah. There is no normal. You know, you can listen into this and hear, and hopefully there are points that are of resonance that will connect with you, and you can explore that more. But there's no normal. Right. It's just you, right? And everybody's journey is going to be different. But this idea of letting go, right? Yeah. Essentially that you were living in the let go, but it's asking with intention. And I think that's the really important thing, is to ask with intention and genuine desire.
Yes. Well, that brings us back to the point is the ego mind was the mind was trying to get myself out of a situation and uphold these images of what a human's supposed to be, have a job, have money. And the moment I decided to pay attention to my feeling, that deep inner thing that you don't want to tell anybody that you really want to do, even if it's, I just want to stay home and read books or watch television. If that's what you feel in your belly, please ask for it. I mean, it's that deep, dark secret that you're so afraid to ask.
But that's your spirit talking to you.
Absolutely, because that desire to just want to be home and watch television may be the catalyst that leads you to meditate, something.
Right, exactly. Because you're always being guided, right? Whether we're connected or not, we're always being guided. It's whether or not we're paying attention, right? So when things happen and you think it's the worst thing, it probably is just the thing that you need to move you a little bit more toward where you're supposed to be. But the ego comes in and says, no, I'm not supposed to lose my job, or I'm not supposed to get divorced, or I'm not supposed to be whatever. And the ego's like holding on for dear life to save itself, because the ego wants to defend, prove, protect, hide. It must at all costs do that. And letting go, first of all, recognizing the ego. And when you're in ego, and when you're saying something, where is that really coming from? Because you almost have to qualify it. It's like, is this coming from my head or my heart?
Right. Well, if you're thinking about it, pretty much your ego.
Well, as opposed to feeling it. So for somebody who's listening or watching, how does feeling it show up? What does that really, because sometimes I think we feel things, or we think things, and we think what we're thinking is a feeling, so like my body will tell me what I'm feeling. If I see an image, and this is the main thing that happens to me because I spend so much time on the computer, and when I'm, clicking around looking for images or something, and I'll see like a beach or sunshine or a field, and my heart, like I will literally feel my heart expand and go, aha, like, yes. It's like a yes. It's like saying, I want that. Yes. I want that. So if you're listening, or if you all of a sudden you get your stomach goes, that's also a feeling.
Yes.
So how do we get more in touch with that? Because sometimes we get that feeling in our stomach and we think we have heartburn and we're taking a Tums, right? But that's actually your spirit trying to talk.
The difference. Come on now. Well, okay. So I don't quite know how to answer this, but if you have options and you're thinking about, should I do this or should I do that? You're in a thinking process, and you want to know what the soul, the ego saying, we should do this, do that. If you can drop down into your belly and watch your breath, this is what our feeling consciousness comes from our 5 senses. And when they say use your common sense, they mean check in with all of your 5 senses to get the average response, which is your 6th sense. Do you see what I'm saying?
I love it.
So you check in and say you're trying to decide on whatever the decision. Do I go out with this guy, take this job? You must be in your belly. So you have to relax your belly and get all the way down there and just get into your calm state. And you just think, okay, what does this job or person smell like? What does this situation sound like? And your body will respond, and one sense in you will respond stronger than the other. And this is how you get your intuitive sense. And I know that sounds like a silly exercise, but this is what they mean by use your common sense. But we've been told common sense means use your rational mind, but it does not. So it's an aggregate of how something smells, feels, and your body will tell you. Usually, if it's a yes response, well, the senses will tell you in images. Right away. When something doesn't smell right, we go like this, and if that situation, your nose will curl.
Yeah.
It's amazing how your body knows, right? But if you're doing yes, no responses, your body, like you said, will have kind of an elevated feeling, an expanded feeling. And if it's a no response, you'll kind of get this, like your whole body, like kinesiology, will kind of,
right.
But you have to be down in your belly asking the question and not in the head asking the question.
Right. And just explain quickly what kinesiology is for anyone that's listening. And if you're just tuning in, we're having a conversation about spiritual awakenings and making the spiritual connection with my special guest, Kat Benson, spiritual seeker and explorer. So what is that?
Yeah, kinesiology is, I don't know the technical definition, but when they use, it's muscle testing, the strength of your body, because this is the feeling consciousness, or the energy of the universes, is in your cells, is in your DNA. It's down to the quantum level. So it means your body wants to function naturally from the cosmic perspective. And so when it's an authentic yes response, your body will be very strong. But if the ego interferes, or it's a no response, then it will get very weak. And this brings me back, we were talking about illnesses and dis-ease, is that because our cells are connected to cosmic consciousness, feeling consciousness, the moment we follow an ego mind or have thoughts that are not in alignment with cosmic principles, it begins splitting our cells' function. You're telling it to listen to the mind, where it wants to listen to your feelings. So that it's like we have personality disorders in ourselves. It wants to be in tune with your feelings. So this is where disease comes from. You're telling it to follow the mind, and it knows what you really want.
Yeah.
So it splits them. Anyway.
And so we can do ourselves a huge favor by just listening. Yeah. So I think, because the time flies by so fast. So, we're already, 35 minutes in, but how can they get better positioned to be in tune? I know I talk about breath all the time. I'm a breath advocate. As I said, I feel like it's CPR for the spirit, kind of wakes it up, because it gets you more in touch, and we think, the human body is very complex, and life can be seemingly complex, but at its core, it's really quite simple. Yeah. We were given, and all around us is the very thing that we need to keep living. The breath of life is not just to keep our physical bodies, but it also helps maintain our mind in a sound way, and can also wake up our spirit. So it really is the breath of life from all perspectives.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So getting into a breath practice, I think, is good, but other body awareness, like what other things would you recommend if someone is like, in this situation where they're at a job and they're very frustrated and they don't know what to do, and they come home every day and they're complaining to their significant other, or drinking, or gambling, or doing something that's not going to be like a good outcome in the long run?
Well, I feel very strongly that everybody is already in touch with it. They already know. They already know what to do and what they really want. It's just that, and it's so buried so deeply, they're just so afraid to say it or look at it. Beyond breath, breath work sounds intimidating. And even when you mention meditation, oh, that's so intimidating. Like, I don't have time for that. And in the Western culture, we can contemplation is a nice medium, okay? But so you can do a semi-meditative sitting with your belly totally relaxed, and the belly is a good place to have relaxation, but you also have to release the bottom, because we hold so much tension in our perineum and that area, that really blocks us from feeling fully. So we have to open that up. And let me just warning now. People are so used to holding their tummies in and their bellies. It's their defense, because down in the belly, this is where all of our deepest, darkest fears and emotions rest. So belly work unconsciously is very frightening to people. But I recommend, if you could just sit, you don't have to close don't worry about meditation, and just breathe deeply into your belly and release that perineum. Just open it wide open. You may get a rush of fear, but what you're feeling, and you may get heat, you may start to sweat, because that's actually your vital chi starting to rise. That's you, that's your soul beginning to wake up. You even may get sexual energy. That's all good. Don't be frightened of it. Mm-hmm. But that fear may arise and it may be terrifying, but it also shows you get a sense of, oh my gosh, how far I have strayed from myself. And that can be a shocking awakening to somebody. Mm-hmm. How far they've let their life get away from their own heart.
And how many times do we see this?
Yeah.
You know, people, I see it all the time, people in their 30s, 40s, well, mainly in their 40s and 50s and even their 60s who now are like, well, you know, I did the thing that I was told I was supposed to do, and I'm really not happy. And what I really wanted to do was this other thing. But when we do the thing, it's like when we really do what we want to do, we think we're going to have to let go of so many things that have become part of our identity.
Yes.
Part of our acceptance and approval living in the world, part of the community that we belong to. And so we can sometimes force ourselves just to maintain and go along with the flow. Absolutely. and not question, and just we're always trying to get ourselves back in line. You know, it's like, but when you feel like, for me, I remember growing up, I was born and raised Catholic. And when I was 16, I told my mom, I was like, you know, I'm not going back. For me, now I'm not saying anything against Catholicism. Right. I'm saying for me, that was not in alignment with where I was. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. I didn't get it. Yeah. And that's why there's so many different religions. I almost think of them like cuisines. You know, there's like spirituality is about, you know, the connection to God source energy, and religions are constructs that are intended to help one develop that connection, but oftentimes it's filled with a lot of dogma that becomes distraction to its original intent. And purpose, right? So being able to say, hey, this doesn't really feel good to me, and honor it, like walking away from a job.
Right. Absolutely.
That pays a lot of money. Right.
Well, remember this, if you are truly and sincerely, I just lost my train of thought because I might have a knock at the door.
It's okay, we're all good.
Yeah, I heard a noise. I think we're okay.
Well, we're getting, well, you know, we've been going for a while. So I think right now what we want to do is, what can we leave our listeners with? Like 2 or 3 really important things. And then we're going to go live on the phone line in just a minute after we complete this. Okay. And if anyone has any questions, they are welcome to give a call in at 212-650-6903 if you have any questions in the last few minutes. And Kat will definitely be coming back on the show again so we can continue this discussion. In our preparation, we talked for like 2 hours one day, and we were like, oh, wow, we should have recorded that. Wow. So anyway, what can we leave people with?
Well, I think we've already said it. Number one, if you have that deep longing to connect with spirit, don't strive and contrive how to just give it over. And believe me, it doesn't matter what you do, the mistakes you make, you will be guided. Just let go. Don't try to become anything. Just, I think we do have,
Okay, no, we keep going. We keep going. We're good.
Everything that you said is absolutely correct. The breath, don't make a big deal out of it. Just sit in your favorite chair and breathe and just turn within, just see how your body feels.
Yeah. Check in.
Check
in.
Don't
And see don't check out. Check in. Don't. I think that's it. Check in. Don't check out. And I think that's really important for people to just get in touch with what's happening. Because we're in our head a lot, but we're not in our heart a lot, and we're not in our belly a lot. Unless we're having a stomach ache or something, and then we're like, where's the drug? But anyway, Kat, I want to thank you so much.
This has been brilliant. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And we will be having you back on again very, very soon. So thanks so much.
Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Love you. Bye. Are we ending? Are we off? Oh, I think she's.
Yes.